I used to believe that love, real love, was unbreakable. That if two people worked hard enough, if they stayed true to their vows, nothing could shake the foundation they built. For the longest time, I thought my marriage was proof of that. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 38 years old, and for the past 12 years, I've been married to Olivia. To anyone looking in from the outside, we had the perfect marriage. We met in our mid-20s, built a life together, supported each other's ambitions, and lived in a beautiful home just outside the city. I run a successful IT consulting firm, and Olivia, with her sharp mind and keen social skills, worked in real estate. She was incredible at what she did, charismatic, persuasive, and effortlessly charming. We weren't just husband and wife. We were a team. That's what I thought, at least. We had everything we could ever need. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We took trips every year, dined at the best restaurants when we felt like splurging, and spent quiet weekends watching movies or cooking together. There were no major fights, no lingering doubts, just two people who had chosen each other, day after day, for over a decade. Sure, life had its ups and downs. Olivia had always been ambitious, and sometimes I wondered if her drive to climb the social ladder was stronger than mine. I was content, happy with the life we had built, but she always wanted more. More luxury, more excitement, more something. I didn't think much of it at the time. After all, we were happy. At least, I was. I never saw the cracks forming. I never realized that Olivia had started looking at the life we built together and seeing something lacking. That what I thought was love, devotion, and security was, in her eyes, routine and stagnation. The storm was coming, but I was too blind to see it. Looking back, I wonder how I could have been so blind. The signs were there, written in the little moments, hidden between the lines of our everyday life. But when you trust someone with your whole heart, you don't look for cracks. You don't search for betrayals. Olivia and I had always been in sync. We had our routines, morning coffee together before work, late-night conversations about our day, and lazy Sundays where we did nothing but exist in each other's company. But somewhere along the way, those moments started slipping away. It started subtly. She began staying out later for work events, networking with potential clients. At first, I admired her ambition. She was great at what she did, and her drive was one of the things I loved most about her. But soon, it felt like she was always somewhere else. Late meetings, business dinners, weekend conferences, her job suddenly demanded more of her time than ever before. She started dressing differently too. Olivia had always been stylish, but now there was something more deliberate about it. Designer dresses, expensive heels, a new obsession with high-end brands she used to scoff at. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. It's all about presentation, Daniel. Luxury sells luxury. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. But then, the intimacy started to fade. At first, it was little things. Less hand-holding, shorter kisses, a slight pull away when I reached for her. Then it became excuses. She was tired, stressed, not in the mood. Months passed, and I couldn't remember the last time she looked at me the way she used to. I tried to brush it off. Relationships go through phases, right? We were both busy. This was just one of those rough patches. That's what I told myself. I started noticing how her phone was always face down. How she suddenly had a password when she never needed one before. How she'd get text messages late at night and quickly dismiss them as work stuff. Then came the way she started talking about him. Nathaniel Kingston, a real estate investor, a millionaire, one of her biggest clients. She talked about him constantly, his business acumen, his taste, his influence. I'd listen, nodding along, thinking she was just excited about landing a high-profile client. But now, I realize what I should have asked myself back then. Why was she so excited about him? And why did it feel like I was starting to lose her? They say you don't notice the moment a person starts slipping away from you. It's not sudden. It's not dramatic. It's a slow, quiet unraveling. So gradual that you only realize how far they've gone when they're already out of reach. By the time I truly felt the distance between Olivia and me, it was too late to pull her back. She was busier than ever. Her networking events became longer, her weekends suddenly filled with work-related obligations. When I asked if she wanted to plan a weekend getaway like we used to, she barely looked up from her phone before muttering, "Maybe next month, babe. Work is just crazy right now." Next month never came. Our conversations became mechanical, surface-level updates about our schedules, empty words exchanged at the dinner table before she disappeared into the bedroom to scroll through her phone. When we used to talk, we talked. Now, it felt like I was speaking to a stranger. One night, I suggested a date night. Something simple. Just the two of us. She hesitated, then forced a smile. "Of course. Let's do it this Friday." I spent the week looking forward to it, thinking maybe this would be the thing that reset us. That pulled us back together. But when Friday came, she canceled. "Nathaniel is hosting a business dinner. It's a huge opportunity. I have to be there." I felt something twist inside me. I didn't argue. I didn't tell her how disappointed I was. I just smiled, nodded, and let her go. Because what was I supposed to say? She wasn't technically doing anything wrong. She was just working, just making connections, just chasing her career. But when she left that night, she was wearing a dress I had never seen before. Expensive, elegant, something she hadn't worn for me. I sat in the silence of our home, staring at the empty seat across from me at the dinner table. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was being insecure, that Olivia loved me, and I had no reason to doubt her. But deep down, something in my gut was screaming. I just wasn't ready to listen yet. I don't know the exact moment Olivia decided to betray me. Maybe it was a slow burn, a series of choices that led her down a path she never intended to take. Or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing from the start. What I do know is that, by this point, she had already made her decision. She just hadn't told me yet. It started with little changes in her routine. She'd leave earlier for work, stay out later for meetings, and come home smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. Her phone was always on silent. She started wearing lingerie to bed, except not on the nights she was with me. But I didn't put the pieces together right away. I still wanted to believe in my wife. Then came the weekend business trip. Nathaniel Kingston was launching a new real estate development in Miami. Olivia told me she had to go. It was too big of an opportunity to miss. "I'll only be gone for 3 days," she said, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek. "I promise I'll make it up to you." I watched her pack, folding her silk dresses and designer heels into her suitcase. I noticed the way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I noticed how she barely looked me in the eye anymore. But I said nothing. When she left that Friday morning, I went about my day as usual, pushing down the gnawing feeling in my gut. I distracted myself with work, convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. Until Saturday night. That was when I got the first real clue. I was scrolling through social media, mindlessly killing time, when I saw a photo on one of Olivia's coworkers' stories. It was a group shot from the Miami event. Olivia was in the center, dressed in a red cocktail dress, standing next to Nathaniel Kingston. His hand was on her waist, and she was leaning into him. It wasn't the pose of a married woman standing next to a business associate. It was something else, something intimate. My stomach twisted. I clicked on the next story. A video. Champagne glasses clinking, laughter in the background. The camera panned across the table, and there she was again, laughing at something Nathaniel said, her hand resting on his forearm. I wanted to believe it was innocent. I wanted to believe she was just networking. But deep down, I knew better. I put my phone down and stared at the empty space beside me on the couch. I was alone. And for the first time in my marriage, I felt like I had already lost my wife. I told myself I was overreacting, that a photo, a fleeting touch, a shared laugh, none of it meant anything. But the doubt had been planted. After that weekend in Miami, Olivia came back like nothing had changed. She walked through our front door, kissed me on the cheek, and set her bags down like she hadn't spent the last 3 days with another man. "How was the trip?" I asked, watching her carefully. "Amazing," she said, slipping off her heels. The event was a huge success. Nathaniel introduced me to some incredible people. Nathaniel. She said his name so easily, so casually, as if he were just a business contact, just another person in her professional world. But I could see it now, the excitement in her voice when she talked about him, the way she came alive in a way she never did when she talked about us. I forced a smile. That's great, Liv. She walked past me, disappearing into the bedroom, leaving a faint trace of perfume in the air. It was new, different, a scent she hadn't worn before. I clenched my jaw and let it go, but I started paying closer attention. Over the next few weeks, I noticed the shift. She was texting more often, always with her phone angled away from me. When I walked into her room, she'd lock her screen with a casual flick of her thumb, as if it were second nature. She started dressing up more, even on days when she had no reason to. Tight dresses, high heels, expensive jewelry. Another dinner? I asked one evening as she checked her reflection in the mirror. Yeah, just a small client meeting, she said, smoothing her dress. With Nathaniel? She hesitated, just for a second, then gave a light laugh. He'll be there, but it's work, Daniel. Don't be weird about it. Weird. That's what she called my growing suspicions. So I swallowed them. I smiled. I let her walk out the door and pretended like everything was fine, because I still had no proof, no hard evidence, just a gnawing feeling in my gut that my wife wasn't mine anymore. One night, I waited up for her. She had told me she'd be home by 10. By midnight, she still wasn't back. By 1, I stopped staring at the clock and grabbed my phone. My fingers hovered over her contact name, but I hesitated. Did I really want to be that husband? The paranoid one? The one who called to check up on his wife because he didn't trust her? I set my phone down. When she finally walked through the door at nearly 2 in the morning, she looked surprised to see me still awake. Why are you up? She asked, dropping her purse onto the counter. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her makeup was still perfect, her hair barely out of place. She smelled of wine and something richer, muskier, a scent I didn't recognize. You said you'd be home hours ago, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. She sighed, rubbing her temples. It was just a long dinner, Daniel. You know how these things go. I nodded slowly. Right. Of course. She gave me a tired smile, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. I let her go. I didn't follow her. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the empty space beside me, wondering when my wife had become a stranger, and why I was still too afraid to admit the truth. I'll never forget the moment Olivia finally told me the truth. It wasn't some dramatic revelation, no screaming match, no teary-eyed apology. There was no guilt in her voice, no hesitation in her words. It was just casual, matter of fact, like she had already made peace with it long before I had the chance to process what was happening. She sat across from me at the dining table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee like it was just another ordinary morning. But nothing about that morning was ordinary. Daniel, she said softly, as if what she was about to say required careful delivery. I think we need to talk. I put my fork down, my appetite already gone. About what? She exhaled and looked me in the eye. I've been seeing someone else. The world around me went still. 3 simple words. Seeing someone else? Not I made a mistake. Not it was just once. I've been seeing someone else. How long had she been waiting to say it? How many times had she practiced in her head? Because it rolled off her tongue so smoothly, so effortlessly, like she was simply informing me of a change in the weather. Nathaniel. His name didn't need to be spoken. I already knew. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. How long? A pause. Then, a few months. I nodded. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. Months. I had been sleeping beside her, eating dinner with her, living in this life for months. Are you in love with him? She hesitated, and that second of silence shattered whatever hope I had left. I don't know, she admitted, but I think I need to find out. I let out a sharp breath, laughing bitterly. So that's what this is? You're leaving? She swallowed hard. I think it's for the best. For the best. As if destroying a marriage, walking away from 12 years together, was just a logical business decision. As if I was supposed to nod, shake her hand, and wish her the best of luck in her new life. Wow, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. You don't even sound sorry. Her lips parted slightly, and for the first time, I saw the slightest flicker of hesitation in her expression. I didn't plan for this to happen, Daniel, she said. But I can't ignore what I feel. Nathaniel. He can give me things that She stopped herself, shaking her head. I just need more. More. That was it. That was the answer. I was no longer enough for her. I pushed my chair back and stood up. I couldn't sit there another second. Couldn't keep pretending to have a civilized conversation about the wreckage of my marriage. When are you leaving? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She blinked, surprised by how easily I accepted it. I'll start packing today. I nodded. Good. Then do me a favor, Olivia. Don't drag it out. The sooner you're gone, the better. She flinched at my tone, but she didn't argue. Maybe part of her knew she deserved it. And just like that, it was over. 12 years of love, loyalty, and devotion, reduced to a cold, quiet morning over coffee. By the end of the day, Olivia was gone, and I was alone. The house felt different after Olivia left. It wasn't just the absence of her presence, it was the silence. The kind that settled into the walls, stretched across the empty spaces where her things used to be. I had told her to pack quickly, and she did. By the time I came home that evening, her closet was half empty. Her perfumes, her jewelry, her designer heels, all gone. She left her key on the kitchen counter, along with a single note. I hope one day you'll understand. I stared at those words for a long time before crumpling the paper and tossing it into the trash. There was nothing to understand. She left because she wanted more. Because the life we built wasn't good enough for her. Because Nathaniel Kingston, with his wealth, his power, his influence, had offered her something I couldn't. I spent the next few days moving through the motions, going to work, eating when I remembered to, sleeping in a bed that suddenly felt too big. People at work noticed the change in me. My assistant, Mark, hesitated before knocking on my office door one afternoon. "Hey man," he said carefully. "Everything okay?" I almost laughed. Was anything okay? No. But what was the point in saying that? "Yeah," I lied. "Just been a long week." He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. And then came the worst part. The well-meaning friends, the quiet whispers of people who had heard. News like this always spreads fast, especially in the circles Olivia and I ran in. I got a text from Olivia's sister, Emily. "I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry." I didn't respond. Then came the mutual friends. Some reached out, offering their support. Others avoided me entirely, unsure of what to say. And then there were the ones who had clearly picked a side. The ones who had always admired Olivia's ambition. The ones who now saw her as the wife who had leveled up in life. I hated them the most. One night, I made the mistake of checking her social media. Her account was still public, and it didn't take long to find what I was looking for. A photo. Olivia at some high-end rooftop restaurant, wineglass in hand, laughing. And beside her, Nathaniel Kingston, his arm draped casually around her waist. She didn't look like someone mourning the end of a 12-year marriage. She looked like a woman who had moved on without a second thought. I turned my phone off and stared at the ceiling for a long time that night. I wanted to hate her. I should have hated her. But more than anything, I just felt hollow. Because I had given Olivia everything. And in the end, it still wasn't enough. Days turned into weeks, and Olivia was gone from my life. At least, in the ways that mattered. She wasn't calling. She wasn't texting. She wasn't looking back. Instead, she was everywhere. I saw her in the places we used to go. Her name came up in conversations I wasn't even a part of. And worst of all, she was all over social media, wrapped in luxury, draped in designer clothes, glowing in the arms of him. Nathaniel Kingston. They weren't hiding. In fact, they were flaunting it. Lavish vacations, private dinners, front row seats at exclusive events. Olivia had stepped into a whole new world, one filled with money, power, and status. And she was thriving. I'd see the photos and wonder if she had ever really loved me. Because the woman in those pictures? That wasn't my wife. That was someone else entirely. At first, it crushed me. But then something changed. I got angry. Not the kind of rage that explodes in a single moment. No, this was the kind that simmered beneath the surface, the kind that made me reevaluate everything. Olivia had thrown me away like I was nothing. Like our life together was nothing. But I wasn't nothing. So I stopped wallowing. I stopped torturing myself by looking at her perfect, carefully curated life. Instead, I poured myself into work, into the gym, into anything that reminded me that I still existed outside of her. And it worked. For the first time in a long time, I started feeling like me again. The version of me that didn't need Olivia. The version of me that wasn't tied to someone who saw me as disposable. People at work noticed. "Man, whatever you're doing, keep it up," Mark told me one day. "You look better." I felt better. Then, just as I was beginning to rebuild, just as I was starting to find solid ground again, Olivia came crashing back into my life. Not in person, not in a call or a text, but in a headline. Billionaire real estate mogul Nathaniel Kingston declares bankruptcy amid fraud allegations. I read the words twice, barely able to believe it. Nathaniel was broke, which meant, for the first time since she left me, Olivia was about to learn exactly what it felt like to lose everything. And I had a feeling I knew exactly where she'd be running next. I knew she would come back. The moment I saw the headline, I knew Olivia would be running straight for me. Because men like Nathaniel Kingston didn't lose everything quietly. When a man that powerful went down, he crashed, taking everyone who relied on him down with him. And Olivia? She had built her new life on his fortune. So when she showed up at my doorstep 3 days later, I wasn't surprised. I opened the door to find her standing there, looking nothing like the woman I had seen in those glossy social media photos. Her designer dress was gone, replaced by something simpler. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup barely there. But the biggest difference? She looked nervous. She had never looked nervous with me before. "Daniel," she said softly, offering a hesitant smile. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "What's there to talk about?" She sighed. "I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve your time. But I made a mistake." I almost laughed. A mistake. That's what she was calling it. Not a betrayal. Not a selfish, deliberate choice. Just a simple, whoops my bad kind of mistake. I stepped aside and gestured toward the living room. "Go ahead, Olivia. Talk." She walked inside, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. I didn't offer her a seat. "I thought I was doing what was best for me," she said, twisting her hands together. "I thought Nathaniel could give me the life I always dreamed of." I raised an eyebrow. "And how's that working out for you?" She flinched, but continued. "I was wrong, Daniel. He wasn't who I thought he was." I nodded slowly, pretending to consider her words. "You mean he wasn't an endless supply of money and luxury?" "Shocking." "Please," she whispered. "I didn't come here to argue. I miss you. I miss us." I stared at her, feeling nothing but a strange, detached amusement. She actually thought she had a chance. "You miss me?" I repeated. "That's funny, because a few months ago, I wasn't enough for you." Her eyes welled up with tears. The same tears that had once made me drop everything to comfort her. "Not this time. Daniel, I was lost. I got caught up in something I thought I wanted." She swallowed. "But when everything fell apart, I realized the only thing that ever really mattered was you." There it was. The desperate plea. The attempt to rewrite history, to paint herself as someone who had simply gotten lost, as if she had tripped and fallen into another man's arms by accident. I took a deep breath, then shook my head. "No." She blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated. "You don't get to do this, Olivia. You don't get to leave, live your fantasy, and then come crawling back the second it all crumbles." A tear slipped down her cheek. "You're really just going to throw away everything we had?" I let out a bitter laugh. "I'm throwing it away? You did that the second you walked out of this house." She was fully crying now, her shoulders shaking. "Daniel, please. I don't have anywhere else to go." I shrugged. "Not my problem." Her face twisted, the tears still falling. But now there was something else behind them, anger. "You're being cruel," she whispered. "I made a mistake, but I'm trying." I cut her off. "No, Olivia. Cruel was betraying the man who loved you. Cruel was throwing away a marriage for a rich man who saw you as disposable. Cruel is coming back here, expecting me to pick up the pieces of the life you destroyed." She sobbed, shaking her head. "I still love you, Daniel." I met her gaze, my expression cold. I don't love you. Silence. She stared at me, like she couldn't believe what she had just heard. Like she had actually convinced herself that I would take her back. I walked to the door, opening it wide. Leave. She hesitated, as if waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. With one final broken sob, Olivia turned and walked out. I closed the door behind her, locking it. And this time, I wasn't the one left behind. For the first time in months, I felt free. When I closed that door on Olivia, I closed it on everything she had put me through, every lie, every betrayal, every moment I spent wondering what I did wrong. I did nothing wrong. It was her who made the choice to leave, her who chased after a fantasy, and her who came crawling back when it all fell apart. But I wasn't a backup plan. I spent years building a life with Olivia, thinking we were partners, thinking we were working towards something together. But in the end, she wasn't looking for a partner. She was looking for an upgrade. And when she realized that I was the best thing she ever had, it was already too late. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel regret. I felt relief. Because now, I could finally move on. It wasn't easy at first. Even though Olivia was gone, the scars she left behind didn't disappear overnight. There were still moments, fleeting but sharp, where I'd wake up expecting to hear her in the kitchen, or when I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text her something funny, only to remember that she wasn't mine anymore. But every day, it got a little easier. I stayed busy. I took on more projects at work, started going to the gym more consistently, reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. I even picked up some new hobbies, things I had always wanted to do but never got around to. For the first time in years, I was living for me. And then, one day, something strange happened. I was sitting at a cafe, sipping my coffee, when I saw a woman at the table next to me laughing at something on her phone. It was a genuine, carefree kind of laugh, the kind that made you want to smile along with her. And for the first time since Olivia left, I noticed someone. Not in a rebound kind of way. Not in a desperate, I need to fill this void way. I just noticed her. And it hit me. There was life after Olivia. Real life. Life that wasn't defined by betrayal or heartbreak. Life that was still open to possibilities. I wasn't broken. I wasn't ruined. I was just getting started. Months passed. Seasons changed. And with each day that went by, Olivia became nothing more than a distant memory. I never heard from her again after that night. At first, I expected her to reach out, maybe another weak attempt to reconcile, maybe just a half-hearted apology she thought would make her feel better. But she never did. And that told me everything I needed to know. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. I never looked her up, never checked her social media, never asked about her when I ran into mutual acquaintances. I didn't need to know what she was doing, because for the first time in a long time, it didn't matter. One evening, I was walking home from work when my phone buzzed with a message from Mark, my assistant. Drinks tonight? We're heading to Sullivan's after work. You in? I hesitated for a second before typing back. Yeah, see you there. Sullivan's was packed when I arrived, filled with the familiar buzz of conversations and clinking glasses. I spotted Mark at the bar and made my way over. But then, something, or rather, someone caught my eye. The woman from the cafe. She was sitting at a table with a couple of friends, laughing at something one of them had said. That same genuine, carefree laugh. I hesitated for only a moment before walking over. She looked up as I approached, her eyes meeting mine with a hint of curiosity. Hey, I said, offering a small smile. I think I saw you at Bean and Brew a while back. You laughed at something on your phone, and for some reason, it stuck with me. She tilted her head, amused. That sounds like something I'd do. Was I watching something funny, or just texting someone hilarious? I chuckled. I'll be honest, I have no idea, but it made me want to know what was so funny. She grinned, leaning forward slightly. Well, I guess you'll have to buy me a drink and find out. I laughed, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. And just like that, the final chapter of my old life closed. I wasn't Daniel Carter, the man who had been betrayed anymore. I was just a man with an open future. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to see where it led.